Hi, it's Cameron Reynolds, and it is good to see you tonight. I hope you all are doing well and adjusting as quickly as possible to that wonderful thing we call time change. So, it looks like we have a birthday in the room. Gary, on his birthday, he gets the time change. Well, tomorrow is my birthday, actually. So, we're really close, Gary. Obviously, great people born in the month of November. And Chris's birthday is also in November, a little bit later. So we have several of the members in here. Thank you all for joining and being a part of our group. And let's see, we have Wing Grove, 61 degrees Fahrenheit, north coast of California, behind the redwood curtain. One of these days, I'll just show my kids some pictures. I've got to get them out there. They just think that's so cool, and I've got to. I want to see it. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, smash the like button, sting it, all of those things. So we have several things that we can talk about. And feeding, prepping bees for winter. Maybe you're already doing it. At what temperatures can you get into the hive? Fondant versus sugar bricks, mountain camp sugar, bladders of syrup in Ziploc bags. There's all kinds of stuff that we can talk about. And I want to start with what I'm doing. It may be a little late for you guys, but it'll give you a little bit of context. Maybe you'll get some of this weather. So over the next week, I have 5 days that are going to be at least 63 degrees Fahrenheit with an average temperature of around 66 during the day between all of those days. And it's still dropping down to the 30s or low 40s, upper 30s, low 40s. So that is quite cool. And the syrup's going to cool down pretty quickly. But I'm planning to feed my bees. And I actually, right before this live chat, just went to my feeding tank on my truck. It's still got about 120 gallons in it or something of 2-to-1 syrup. And I'm going to try to have that around 100 degrees, 120, thereabouts, so that when I put it into the feeders, it's a little bit better for them. You can't, if you get it too hot, they'll actually hop in there and they'll get too warm, but it definitely won't hurt anything. Not this early in the season. Will it cause a little bit of condensation? Absolutely. But this early, it's not a big deal. And I'm feeding really powerful colonies. And these hives are going to have to take it down within a few days, because it looks like within the next 7 to 8 days, we're back to, 53 degrees, dropping down to freezing, that kind of stuff. There's also several other ways to feed, though. So, hey, everybody, people from all over the place, 49 degrees in Kansas City. Hey, Brian from Colorado, we owe you an email. Happy early birthday, Cayman. Thank you very much. I had to ask Laurel how old I'm going to be, because I really wasn't sure. I didn't do the math. And I was like, am I turning 37 or am I turning 38? She's like, you're turning 37. Whew. I really thought I was 38. At this point, who's counting, I suppose, but it's shocking how quickly time flies. We've been doing this YouTube thing for pushing I think we started almost 7 years ago. Maybe it was 6 years ago. Yeah, 6 years ago. And it's just been insane. Absolutely insane. I told Laurel it was a terrible idea, and I was wrong again. I'm getting used to that, though. I mean, 15 years of marriage almost. I mean, you better be getting used to that. 28 degrees Celsius in Australia. Awesome. I hope you guys are doing as best as you can with Varroa over there. It's a big adjustment for everybody. The one recommendation I'll give, because we're not Australia, we have different weather. In the United States, even within our areas, Varroa management can vary. Underestimating those suckers is going to cause you lost bees. The alcohol wash, or using the soap wash, basically the same thing and how it works, is one of the best tools that I've ever used. And doing that often, especially early, as you're getting these. Oh, thank you. 82 degrees Fahrenheit. That's really nice weather. It's like Florida right now. Nice. And it'll really give you an idea of what the mites are doing. Doing that over multiple years. Okay, you don't have mites yet. Perfect. That's awesome. I hope it stays that way for a while for you, but eventually, of course, they'll probably get there. And so, again, my recommendation is, as soon as you get a chance, monitor those things because the information on what works in what region really varies. And knowing the mite growth throughout your season and observing that not only one year, but in multiple years back to back really helps you. And what we have found is that a lot of the strategies in my region are very inadequate and it causes a lot of new beekeepers, Tennessee, Kentucky, beekeepers in this region a lot of losses because they're treating too late, they're not treating enough, and starting early and killing, you might only have 200 mites in the hive, but you use some light treatments and oxalic acid primarily, or maybe a low dose of formic, and you cut those things back early. It really helps your bees look good later in the season, and then you'll do another follow-up treatment, and your bees just never really get pummeled by the viruses, which is really the biggest problem. And let's see, Varroa with Vicks Vapor Rub. So I have never ever heard of that, and I imagine that's a terrible idea. Using at least a legit vapor rub. Uh, honestly, if you use the Apiguard product, though, it doesn't smell quite like Vicks because it doesn't have the same essential oils and stuff, but it smells like thymol and it will open your sinuses. So there's a lot of feeding going on. I'm getting a lot of questions on feeding right now, and so I actually am trying something not crazy new, but I did get some fondant in. This is the Hilco stuff. And of course, if you're coming to the Expo, Hive Alive, Hilco, and several, maybe a few other companies will have some feed stuffs. So if you're needing some, I'm not kidding. I just saw a video about using Vicks for Varroa. Oh my goodness. You know, Vicks to calm down Robbie sneaks up the place and confuses robbers. Okay. Well, I could see where that could work on, really disorienting the bees on robbing and stuff like that. I mean, it's basically the same thing as like a fume board almost, except not the typical products that you would buy. It would be cheaper. I've often wondered how hard it would be to make an effective fume. Most fume board materials or sprays, liquids are like almond oil, and that's not that hard to source yourself. And I hate the containers. Can anybody make one of those spritzing fume board containers that'll actually last halfway through the bottle without deteriorating on you and just making a mess and getting my gloves and everything smelling like almond oil? Little rant of mine. I was like, goodness, spend a few extra bucks and get a higher quality bottle. I'll pay for it. Just do it. The markup on that stuff is plenty good. I'm sure they can afford it. Okay. The VIX is used to keep us old timers going, not mic control. Hey, Harry. Uh, man, I haven't smelled that stuff in years, but I know exactly what it smells like. My mom, and that was a thing that you did. Your kids had a cold in Indiana in the 90s. Or, Ethan did have, I believe, pneumonia at one point, and my mom would slather us up in that stuff. And you just get you just have the weirdest dreams and all kinds of stuff. You're breathing that all night long. But I don't know if I liked it or I hated it. I think I hated it though. So, feeding, obviously my favorite way to feed, and I'll say this forever, is liquid feeding, starting early. We had a good fall flow here in Tennessee. This is the best one I've seen in probably 5 or 6 years. The strong colonies that were just packed double deeps, we put an extra deep box on them, and like almost all of the big colonies filled that third box out. We showed you some videos drawing some of those boxes out. Some of it they started drawing with a little bit of feed, but then that fall flow hit, and it was a good one. But you never know what you're going to get. Most of the time, it's subpar. We had to have put on 40 pounds, 50 pounds, maybe even on the bigger colonies. I haven't seen a flow this good in a long time. And so your medium-sized colonies to 20 to 30 pounds. Your weak colonies didn't add near as much, but it was still something. And so we're feeding those, the weaker ones. And some of the big ones, we're just having to pull frames of honey off of them. And it's brood combs, and there's a little bit of feed mixed in, and I don't really want to extract again. So that's why we put deep boxes on them. And so we're just taking some of those frames that are just solid honey, because some of these colonies have 80 to 90 pounds or more of honey in them. And so we'll drop them down to about 50 to 60 pounds, which is plenty good for Tennessee. I'll start feeding a little sugar syrup in February just to get them kick-started because they're already wanting to rear brood in February. We get our pollens come in the second week, and so we'll give them a little bit of thin syrup, and it's still getting really cold, guys. So some people will say you can't do that stuff, but you'll get a day where they can take some of that in, and it doesn't have to be a lot, but it does help them rear that brood. And if they do have anything going on in their guts, a little bit of a high pathogen load, could be various things, that sugar syrup helps cleanse that out and get things going. So we like to give them a little bit of feed. But, if you get in a pinch and your colonies are low, you can make sugar bricks, and I have videos on that, or you can use fondant. And a lot of people are asking me right now, what is better? Fondant, if it's too cold for syrup, fondant or sugar syrup, uh, or sugar bricks. And it depends on what's best for you. I mean, the sugar bricks are way cheaper. It's basically a little bit of time and sugar. And the fondant is more expensive, but the bees do take it a lot quicker and faster because it's softer. It has some uh, water content in it, because it's made partially with syrup mixed in with this sugar that's in here. So it is much quicker for them to take down. I would say if they were the same price, fondant is better. No question, but they're not the same price. And sugar bricks work really good, but neither one works well if the bees aren't in contact with it. And so you might have a double deep box, but if they're already so low that you're having to feed them this early with emergency feeds like this, I'd reduce them down to put all the food into one deep box and then have yourself some type of little shim or something that you can put something like this or put a candy board on. So, because they have to have direct contact with it. And sugar bricks are super easy to make. There's several different recipes. Candy boards and sugar bricks are basically the same thing, except a candy board is really designed to be one giant sugar brick that fits right onto the box. And they're heavy as all get out. But they are very effective if you need to do that. It's basically like 1/4 inch hardware cloth stapled to a feeder rim that's about this tall, and you just pack it full of the sugar brick material and then let it dry out. So the sugar bricks that we make in the videos, it's just 1 cup of water to 10 pounds of sugar. Take a drill or a paddle and just stir that up until it's like a wet sand type texture. Pack it into whatever size that you want. And you can use fans. You can stick it semi close to a wood stove, or you can just wait in a very dry room for about a week or so, depending on how thick the brick is, and it'll harden and you can knock out, um, anybody with it. It's quite hard. And then you can put it in your oven at the lowest temperature your oven will go for about, usually we do about 170, 180 for about an hour on a brick that's about this thick, and it just comes out ready to use. And so that's one way to do it. But we rarely feed any of those things. Occasionally, we find a couple colonies that are a little bit light that we didn't get to, but most of the time we feed them up so good with 2-to-1, starting in mid to late September, right after the flow ends, really really late September. But we don't want them to go into the flow light either. So if we have a good flow, several of our big colonies aren't getting fed at all. Can you talk about selling honey, pricing, where to sell, and what are the laws around selling honey? I'm here in PA, so honey has to be sold by the pound. That's one of the laws, but I'm just in Tennessee. I don't know what other laws are. In Tennessee, I think if you produce X amount of pounds, you have to have a honey house. Some states are totally different on that, and I'm not massively familiar with multiple states' laws. As far as where to sell, keep in mind, I'm in like a town that's super, super tiny. Marketing advice from me might be terrible. And I don't even want to take the time to market my honey one jar at a time. I don't have the time. I don't even really have time for honey anymore. I don't have any time. It's ridiculous and frustrating. Everything has just grown so big in other areas. My bees are just constantly getting chipped away at by the YouTube, primarily the conference and all the things we're doing for the industry. And I'll talk about that here in a little bit. We'll kind of keep it brief. But I wholesale my stuff. And so I'm charging like 650 a pound for my honey, and the stores have to buy multiple cases. When you wholesale, you don't have to pay sales tax. So, if you're if you're, have a legit LLC, and if you're selling enough, you really should, then, sales tax is something to consider. My time is something to consider. A lot of people who are working full-time jobs and trying to do this, time is very valuable, and everyone has to determine what that means to them. Um, I don't have any problem selling honey. I just had an order for 8 cases at one location. I had 4 at another location. Typically, we're just, bam, 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 dropping these things off. We only sell like 2 different sizes of jars. It's super simple, but I know guys in Nashville that are charging more than double than what I do for the same amount of honey, and my honey's better than theirs. I'm just messing. And so, if you're wanting to get the most bang for your buck, I'm not the right person to talk to. I'm excited about the conference. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. We've had some really good progress this week with talking to the Expo Center, the Crown Plaza. We're starting to see some really good things roll, and we've got a lot of things going. Okay. Good deal. And some people, this is one thing I really want to talk about. I'm very passionate about this, and I get on my tangents. So if you guys want to keep me away from them, ask questions. The when can I go into my bees at what temperature rule is all kinds of messed up, and the internet does not get it right. I've made splits at 39 degrees Fahrenheit before. This is in spring. This was March 1st. That's cool. And you know what? These are some strong bees, like premium bees coming out of winter. They already had made some brood, and we were hitting a cold spell, but we'd actually been quite warm in February, and the pollen flow started almost in January, just the beginning of February. These are some strong bees, and they were cranking out some brood. And so I got some queens from Hawaii. I had to make some splits with them, and we did, and it worked great. We actually made some queen candy, and we fed it to those colonies and the splits we made, plus gave them a frame of honey, and they all took, all the queens worked out, and it really opened my mind to this whole concept of what temperatures can we open the hive at. It really depends on the hive, and also depends on where you're at. I don't My average day temperature is probably in wintertime 40 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's definitely not, you know, Montana weather or Maine or Vermont or anything like that. So you have to consider that. However, I know several buddies in Northern Europe, Canada, the US, and these are experienced beekeepers who are opening their hives with snow on the ground to check on stores, to maybe throw pollen patties right before the pollen flows going. So there are variables here, and we don't need to close our mind off. So, there was a guy, and I'm not going to call him out on my channel. I did comment on his video, and he was like, if it's under 50 degrees Fahrenheit, you cannot go into your bees. Hogwash. That's ridiculous. Should you go into your bees under 50? No, if there's no good reason to. But we've done it so many times, I can't count how many times we've done it. And if your bees, are light and they could be on the brink of starvation, the difference between open your bees at 20 degrees Fahrenheit and throwing in some food like this directly on them versus risking waiting till the temperatures get to 50, get in there and throw that food on them. It's the brood is the weakest when it comes to cold weather. And during those periods, typically there is little to no brood. And so that's really not a concern. I'm not pulling frames up. I can pick up a box. I might, pry a box apart, and I can pick it up and feel the weight. And if it's light, we've got to do something immediately, and we got to help those bees out. And usually it's some of the best colonies that can swarm sometimes because they're powerful and they've got a massive cluster. And then as soon as we start raising brood in February, the energy consumptions go through the roof. The bees are really conservative when there's no brood in the colony, but as soon as they need to keep that brood in the 90s, all of a sudden their demands go way up, and that pollen flow hits, and they just want to rear that brood. And so a lot of the best colonies that you'll lose in wintertime that you shouldn't lose is due to starvation. And that can be easily avoided. Those big colonies are going to be just fine. Just fine. So, is there a certain temperature to watch out for? Just be fast. Open it up, throw the food on them, get out. You can use some materials to reseal the lid and stuff like that. There is a gentleman who's made a mineral oil beeswax mix, Blue Horizon something or another. I can't remember. And I need to do a video on his product. He gave it to me like 2 years ago. And it basically is a caulk from beeswax and mineral oil that you can put around the top of your box that'll seal that lid back. But you can also use stuff like the Foamies or the Reflectix product to help seal that lid back down. And if you're just getting in there and you're opening it up, people are like, well, they just lost all their heat. It's going to take them hours to fix that. The bees are not heating the entire hive. They are not doing that at all. If it's a really massive hive and it's wall to wall bees, well, then yeah, they're heating the hive, but it's because they are basically covering the whole hive, and they're mainly keeping the cluster integrity good. So don't listen to that hogwash out there on that. Get into your bees even in cool temperatures if you need to. Oh, Blue Green Horizons, Chris, awesome. So this guy actually does a lot of cutouts. I believe he's in California. He also makes some oxalic acid like dribble sticks, and he does a lot of unique things. Pretty cool guy. Maybe look into the Blue Green Horizons because I've seen him use that caulk before. I've seen other people use it, and you just use a caulk gun and you just put it around the edges, and it's mostly beeswax, food grade mineral oil, and bam, you've just resealed your lid. Of course, in places like Tennessee, it's not that big of a deal. If you're losing bees to cold weather in Tennessee, your colony's so weak it's not worth anything. That's not very nice to say, but it's true. We can expect hives year round in Western Australia. Even in winter, we have highs 15 to 20 degrees Celsius, 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And in places like where I'm at, you will get cold. We'll get a couple of really tough weeks. But in Tennessee, I'd say in December, we get a handful of days at around 60. In January, we might get some 50 to 60s. We usually get at least a cleansing flight day or two. And in February, we're totally gathering pollen by then. But the bees are rearing brood during that time. And so if the bees can handle that type of cold weather and raise those bees, we should be more concerned with making sure they have the nutrition to meet their energy demands than opening the lid and releasing a little bit of heat into the environment. Okay, I'll get off on that one real quick. Chris, do we have any questions that I've missed? Okay. Question here from Red Creek Honey Company. Hey, thanks for being one of our members, by the way, and good evening to you. So we are working on those, and we are getting really close to the workshops. We have had to pivot on a couple of the classes, and we've had several people want to do them. The problem of it is we don't want to have boring, lame workshops. And, also these are going to be a small additional fee as well. So we want to make sure that they're totally worth that at the low end. And so we're having to gather resources, go through logistics, expand a lot of stuff, and see, how we can ensure that we meet all those things. Last year, I didn't announce that till like December-ish. It was crazy late. I expect that to be announced. Chris, can I say something?
I'll mute you if I have to.
Okay, I'm going to try to have it, guys, within the next 2 weeks. Definitely before Thanksgiving. So I've given myself a deadline, and Chris is now on board to make sure that I keep to my deadlines most of the time. Yeah. I did finally shave. I've been so busy. I've been working on a project that you guys will hear about in the future as well. That'll be another cool thing at the Bee Expo this year. I can't tell you what it is yet, but I'm super excited. A lot of neat things going on. And on that note, Oh, what are the workshops this year?
Tease
So we're
away.
gonna have an expanded list of microscopy classes in two different types. We'll have the same one that we had last year, which is a great introduction class, but it's not just your most basic stuff. There's also quite a bit of great information in there. It's a 2-hour course, and Etienne Karaching and Chris's dad and Kara's husband did a great job with that last year. It looks like Dr. Robin Underwood will be helping us expand that this year, and Etienne and Kara and the group will be expanding that as well. And so that was very popular last year, and we're also going to have a couple more of Gus's cut comb honey workshops. We're going to have some candle making ones. We're going to have some mead making ones. And this is where, like, you get to take stuff with you. You're making stuff there. You take stuff home with you. It's going to be hands on. This isn't going to be you just getting a lecture. And then we're also looking at a creamed honey one and a few other odds and ends as well. Maybe an encaustic art. So we're looking at a few different things. I'm open to suggestions, but it's a little too late for that. But go ahead and give them to us anyways. I got an open air hive, so I'm not sure what time you can or can't. I just know that they made it through the snow we had in Alabama. You guys had snow in Alabama. That's not too common. And my dad was from Mobile, and so definitely that part of Alabama, they didn't get much. But that sounds, yeah, it happens a lot. I've seen bees. They're not open air like getting rained on, but I've seen them before where they're under an overhang, like in a old abandoned building, and they're just hanging underneath, and they're getting wind. They're getting all of that. But we're in a very mild area here in Tennessee, and those are some really strong bees. A weak colony would have never done it. And just think about this: if you have a 6-frame cluster in a double deep box, they can't heat that thing. They're not doing it at all. They would burn through the resources trying to, and there would be no point. And this is why we have started condensing our hives down more and more. And actually, one of the lectures given by Deborah Klugers out of New York is about condensing hives, how to do it, when to do it, why to do it, and a lot of other logistics around northern beekeeping. And she's really good at marketing stuff. How cold does it get in winter? Okay, we live in the middle of big ag. Unfortunately, we have farms around us that fumigate via planes. We have lost 2 hives from poison. Any tips? I live in an area that has no experience with that. Sometimes there's programs where people will let you know if they're spraying or not. That doesn't mean that those programs are perfect and you don't always know. You can cover your hives up with them. I am not trying to be I'm going to just play the devil's advocate, but are you sure they died from poison? Because I know a lot of guys who are vastly successful in areas that do stuff like that. They're in Memphis and the Delta area, and they are some great honey producers. They're great beekeepers running thousands of hives and some of them hundreds, and they deal with aerial sprays of cotton and soybeans and other crops. And it can be tricky, don't get me wrong, but uh, late season losses are extremely common, anyways, if the Varroa loads and other things aren't taken care of. And so unless you're 100% sure, my concern is, because I did this in the past. I remember one year I thought I'd lost bees because the TVA or whoever it was that sprays our power lines on these massive hills that we have around here, they nuked everything along those power lines with herbicide. And of course, I was told by people around me that was going to kill my bees. And then lo and behold, 2 months later, my bees, month and a half, whatever it was, my bees died. And I blamed that on that situation. I was probably 2 or 3 years into beekeeping. And looking back, I know exactly what had actually happened. I didn't do Varroa properly, and Varroa sacked those colonies. And I had bees a month before, and then I didn't. They absconded. I had very little bees. I still had honey stores. I had little patches of brood. Typically, pesticide kills. It's massive bee die off. And I mean, there's just tons of bees clustered underneath the hives. So I'm not saying you didn't get poisoned, but you just need to know for sure so that you can, if it's Varroa or something else, you can fix that on your end and have success. Or if it is poison, maybe look for a different bee yard or see if you can figure out when they're doing it so you can cover your hive up with maybe a wet sheet or something, keep them hemmed in. But more often than not, I tend to believe it's not poison, to be honest. I just know too many people that live in big ag that are very successful, but it really depends on the circumstances. So that's just all I know.
Can I give my 2 cents on that since
No, two
since I
cents
battle?
for you. No
Okay.
2 cents for you. Go
All
ahead,
right.
Chris. I'm messing.
But no, so I'll just my 2 cents. So I'm here in Northwest Ohio, and I have 10 plus fields that all kind of touch my area, and we spoke to the local place that actually brings the airplanes out, and she will text me a couple days before they do it, and so I kind of have a heads up. And I've even been able to talk to them a little bit about doing the spray towards the afternoon or evening as the bees are foraging less on the plants. But I have found that I will see sometimes a population dip in the hive, or there's a little bit less. But I have 10 fields around me being sprayed at various times, and I have never had a hive just die from that. I'll see some dips, but nothing crazy. And they're spraying in the middle of my honey flow is when they spray. So, I would say, make friends with not only the farmers, but also the people who spray, because that's been a huge help for me, being able to communicate with them and what they're spraying. They'll be honest with you. I mean, they legally have to, but they will be if you're nice.
So good answer, Chris. And that's where I don't live in corn country, soybean country. We have hills and weeds and lots of hills and weeds. So where's the best place to get frames at a low price? It is totally the North American Honeybee Expo. Shameless plug, but seriously, no, it is. It really is the place to get stuff. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go check it out on our Facebook group, and there'll be more stuff available soon as the vendors are releasing more deals, and we're going to try to get that easy for you all to access. And how get out of here. And so we have the best pricing in one spot in the United States and possibly the world. Until proven wrong, that's what I'm going to claim, I suppose. But I mean, just shipping alone on some things, picking this stuff up, we're going to have a semi-load of pollen patties again this year. But frames are a really good price, and there's different styles of frames going to be there. Several companies are doing it. I believe I saw $2.80 a loaded frame. Now this was double waxed, Premier Foundation, already assembled, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the price, or real close. And of course, it's cheaper if you want to get some unassembled stuff as well. But keep in mind, if you're not going to the Bee Expo and you know somebody from your club that's going, maybe they have room and they can bring you some stuff back. A lot of people do that. All right. Any info on the event at the Crown? So, Keith, we've been working on them with pricing and stuff, trying to find something that's semi-reasonable, because the problem of it is, and I've said this before, I believe, that I've sat down and go, why is this stuff so expensive? And some people feel like I shouldn't share as much as I do, and that's probably true, but I'm just not that way. So for better or for worse, I share things. And we got a bill this year from our audio visual team that usually is around $50,000. That doesn't include the recording team, getting the speakers there, all that stuff. Just for the audio visual, 50 grand and change. And this year they've reevaluated stuff, and it's 111,000 for the same exact job. We're in the wrong business. And whatever so we just finally found out. Chris has been trying to get that quote from them since June, and so now we're on our back foot having to find a new vendor, which is very disappointing. And that happens every year. Every year this happens 2 or 3 times. So frustrating. The Crown um, these hotels and stuff. It's expensive, and I sit down and think, why is this stuff so expensive? But a lot of the big events at the Kentucky Expo Center and most of these shows, if it's a if it's sports related, a lot of state and government funding. Um, if it's for schools, federal funding, maybe state funding, maybe both. I don't know enough about that. Homeschooled, but there's funding there. It's not your regular business. Medical stuff, that's totally interesting. My point I'm getting to is pretty much all the ag, school stuff, medical stuff, and a lot of these big things are subsidized by governments. And so, just like in the military, where a screw can cost you $300 or more, this happens a lot. And so, it's not our money; it's the school's money, or it's the state's money, or it's whoever's money. People will throw stuff. It's $69 a gallon for sweet tea at this place. Again, we're all in the wrong business, and we thought honey was getting expensive at $20 a pound. Maybe not. So, anyways, we've been working with them this week. We got some really encouraging news. We basically said, hey, we can't have this price. It's still going to be a premium price, folks. And I'm sorry. There's nothing we can do about that. We're going to try to get it in about the $50 to $60 range for a full-blown meal and some dessert and some drinks. That's what we're shooting for. We're going to see where it lands. The original estimate they were giving was going to be around the $90-ish range. And I know that's expensive, but it's going to be a fun hangout. And for those who are willing to, I guess, pony up the cash for that more in-person meet up with the VIPs and stuff and just hang out in that crowd, it will be a blast and it's going to be awesome. I just wish we could get it down to more of the $20 to $30 range, but we can't at the hotel. We would have to have an event somewhere else, and it'd still be. We have to keep it simple on our end as well. We've tried to do a lot of custom stuff, and we may look at doing more of that stuff in the future. But there's no way we can have it at the hotel where it's convenient, and we're not having to do a lot of labor. So that's the situation, and we will have more updates soon. Whew. It is hot in this room, all this hot air, and that's why Laurel shuts the doors to keep the rest of the house cool. And it could be something like that. I don't know. Tailgate in the Expo parking lot. It could be cold. We can all bring a gallon of sweet tea and see. Yeah, exactly, and throw it in the what river is that right there? Is that the Ohio, Chris?
Yes, that's the Ohio. Yep.
Yeah.
Flowing down to hit the Mississippi.
Yeah. So, the funny thing is there's an old bluegrass song called Banks of the Ohio that we used to play. And I played it for Laurel one time. She didn't know. And it sounds super romantic until it gets to the point of the girl basically denied him and shot him down, and he drowned her in the Ohio River off the banks. So anyways, yeah, bluegrass, it's great. Yeah, exactly. Chris doesn't need sleep. Now he's already burning the candle at both ends. All right. We got folks from Montana jumping in, all kinds of folks. Ian says, I'm thinking of using strong microbial super fuel fondant for my first spring feed round. I need a bulk order to bring down the cost a bit. I've tried that stuff, Ian, and the bees will eat it pretty good. I will say they sent me some of their green stuff, and I had colonies that just flat out refused to eat it. Wouldn't touch it. And I mean, we tried, and these are powerful colonies. They should be eating anything and everything. Couldn't get them to eat it. Now, I've tried their fondant, and they ate that just fine. It is a little bit drier than your average fondant, like this fondant right here. You can squeeze that pretty good. You can squeeze that other stuff, but it's like that. What's that gum brand that had like a powder on the outside of it? It was the ballpark chew. That I don't know if they still sell that. You pretend like you're chewing tobacco like a baseball player, but it was gum, and it had the powder to keep all the pieces of chew from sticking together. That's
called Big League Chew. Yes,
Big League Chew. Thank you, Chris. Oh, Memory lane. So speaking of the fondant, though, it is pricey. The super fuel part of it, the Apis biologics, is great. The microbes might be really great too. The problem is the price point. Big League Chew, thank you. Yeah, there we go. And see, this is what happens when this is why I like the bee industry, because I can hang around people that actually know what I'm talking about, or at least as crazy as I am. Because the only time I don't really fit in this industry is when I go speak at a university, and I'm talking to these kids about beekeeping, and most of them aren't beekeepers. Maybe some of them are doing a little bit with the university, but they're like, some of them like show up in their pajamas and they fall asleep during my lecture, which is super annoying. Uh, and they're totally not engaged, and it's a totally different crowd. And then I'll talk about cassettes, or I'll talk about Big League Chew or something like that, and they have no clue what I'm talking about. This is but I'm turning 37 tomorrow, so I digress. They ate the super fuel okay. They didn't kick any out. It's a little bit drier, so it flakes a little bit more. Like this stuff right here, even if it falls on the bottom board, they're going to go down and eat this stuff. They just love it to death. Now this is basically just your standard fondant. This is Hilco's stuff, but it's fondant. John doesn't put anything in there, and he did that specifically to keep the cost down. But there's nothing in there. I do really love that Apis Biologics rocket fuel, though. I've got a whole stash of it over here. I just threw some more in our 2-to-1. A large textbook slammed on a desk wakes them up. Well, I don't want to send them to their cry closets and their safe places. Hey, thanks for the happy birthday. Thank you, everybody. It's another good year to be alive. I'm very thankful. And well, my memory's not going to get better either. It's always been bad. My mother will tell you. So I'm going to be out of control. First time at the live show. I just wrapped my hives today, predicting very cold weather this winter in Indiana. What's your thoughts on wrapping hives? So I was literally just reading something about that today, and it used to be a lot more common than it is now. And some people still do it and like to do it, but most of you want to keep wind off of your bees. That's the number one thing, in my opinion, anywhere you're at. Wind is a problem. So wrapping can help with that to a degree. If there's cracks and leaks in between the boxes or the lids or whatever. But most of your heat loss is totally going through the lid. The vast majority is going through the lid. So insulating the lid, in my opinion, is more valuable. I don't know what part of Indiana you're at. I was raised for the first 12 years of my life in Anderson. It's a little bit northeast of Indianapolis, maybe not too far north. And, so that's the winters I grew up with up there. And there was a beekeeper actually in Anderson. He was a great orchardist as well. And his honey was always awesome. He was surrounded by soybeans and corn, but he had great honey. And he since passed away. But that was like my first time trying real honey without realizing it. So, but he never wrapped his hives. And, so I don't know. It really depends. I don't live in a cold region. I don't insulate really at all. So I'm a terrible person to ask. This is really a question for somebody with more experience. My favorite guy on this, as far as if you're wanting nitty gritty analytics and stuff like that, is Etienne Tardif. He actually comes to my conference and he does the microscopy workshops, but I've done some interviews with him on my live streams, and he's always had a brilliant presentation. You can find stuff. He has a YouTube channel as well. He's north of the 60th parallel, overwintering information. That's awesome. So, but honestly, wrapping seems to have kind of gone out of favor the last few years. Did Ethan scare anyone with his costume? So what Bees in the Abyss is referring to is my brother for Halloween dressed up as me, which was pretty lazy because he put on a Bee Expo hoodie and a Bee Expo hat and basically wore the same kinds of clothes that I would wear, which is, work jeans and boots, and that's about it. And so he went to the party as me, and it was extremely scary. And of course, several people like, oh, there we go. Thank you, Chris. Yeah. Of course, Ethan's got facial hair. Ethan can grow a mean beard. He's really trimmed it back. And you'll see him at the expo if you look around. He's our audiovisual coordinator for our workshops. And he'll have a lot more to do this year for certain. So Ethan's a great brother and great dad and great husband and all the things. Thank you, Sean. Sean's our coffee guy, does a great job. There we go. There's a bug in here and it's annoying me. I mean, I thought we killed all those. So check this out. I want to show this really quick. This is heather honey. And so I don't know how well you can see that. It's like a marmalade. This is heather honey. And I picked it up when I was in Copenhagen. And there's all different types. But I mean, just look at that. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get it to focus on it. Oh well. I've always wanted to try it. It's a very unique honey. They have to press it out of the combs. There was actually a couple of interesting tools at the show to help maybe not have to press it out of the combs or not damage the combs fully. And it's just the way that it naturally sets up. It's not like normal honey crystallizing. It is totally like a jam or jelly marmalade type consistency. It's really cool. It's got a good flavor, but the consistency is the best part. All right. More questions. Oh, Tropilaelaps. I want to talk about that a little bit. So some of you guys saw or tuned in to our, have fun spinning that out. Saw our Tropilaelaps talk a week or two ago, that with Charles Linder and Blake Shook. And I just want to provide some context and some follow-up. There was some major ripple effects from that. And it did exactly what I hoped it would. What I want folks is to do more than anything is to stay tuned in. But freaking out is totally unnecessary. We're still learning a lot about this. And while there is a lot of that, and I've been accused, of course, because on YouTube I get accused of being everything from a saint to being a fear monger and an idiot and everything under the sun, in other words, I won't speak of. So the goal with that was to get people to tune in. Education is paramount when it comes to big changes in the industry. And we may not get Tropilaelaps for decades, and that should be the goal. One of the goals of the chat was to bring awareness so that folks can start looking into ports that they may be local to. And we're hoping to get involved with some of those next year and go visit them and show folks what a good port security looks like. Monitoring swarm traps near ports and euthanizing those and sentinel hives. We're going to look into that. And there are some places and state inspectors and organizations doing a phenomenal job. And I think they deserve to really be, praised and, given an attaboy or two. There's a lot of people that do a lot of things in our industry we don't understand. And I think it's important that we do understand these things. But also, it would be irresponsible for us to not double check and make sure everything's being done properly. And with Tropilaelaps, we would like to keep it out as long as possible because there's great researchers in the University of Auburn with Project APISM, Phyra Science, and Maggie Card. And Maggie Card is part of the commercial beekeepers, the Card family, Wes and Maggie Card. They're great commercial beekeepers, but Maggie Gill of the UK and Phyra Science are doing great Tropilaelaps work. And then there's also Sammy Ramsey and other people as well putting a lot of work. I really think we have a great group of scientists out there that are really doing their part in trying to get out there and get the job done. I think the industry needs to do its part, and that's all of us, in making sure that our ports are secure, making sure that we're holding each other accountable, educating one another, and not just complaining without taking action, because we're really good at that. It's just a human thing. It's not a beekeeper thing. It's a human thing. And and not all of us can do the same things. The Bee Expo is not a body that represents the beekeeping industry on the government level. And we don't plan on doing that. I think to do that would actually pull away from the other groups that are doing that. But we are going to be engaging more with the other groups that are doing that to help make sure that all the work gets done. And to whenever there's a good policy going on, that we are going to be using the entire weight of the Bee Expo, the YouTube channel, and all of our friends to be able to get whatever we need to get done. The beekeeping industry needs to start taking better care of itself. We cannot rely on the government or anybody else fixing our problems for us. It's our industry. It's up to us to protect it. But I really think there's some positive things with Tropilaelaps. We have great researchers out there, and we have good beekeepers going too. We have some exciting things on the industrial side of the industry. We have companies that are looking into already developing technology to deal with these problems. And the more information we get from these researchers, the better they'll be able to do that. And we fully intend to support not only with energy, but financially these groups the more and more we grow. So Garrison asked, can I share some of the research about the Tropilaelaps mite? A lot of it's really preliminary. And that's why I'm really careful about this, because I don't want to mislead anybody. So that's why we're bringing that to the Bee Expo, and they'll be just straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And there's some new stuff that they're still carving out the data that'll be ready in December. And there's a lot of questions. So the number one problem with Tropilaelaps is it reproduces way faster than Varroa mites. And I did look into it. They do transmit viruses. I don't know to the level of Varroa. Is it greater? Is it lesser? They may still be looking into that, but they do know that it definitely carries viruses like Varroa. And the biggest problem with them is the reproductive speed, where I believe it's like a 5-day turnaround. They hop in the cell, they lay an egg. 5 days later, the original egg is already developed, and that is laying another egg. Do not hold me to that. But the problem of it is they reproduce so much faster. So 100 mites turns into 1,000 mites way quicker than Varroa. The other problem with them is that they do not feed on the same wound where Varroa does. And so if you have 3 Varroa mites in a cell, they're going to feed out of the same wound. Where you have more Tropilaelaps mites in a cell, and they feed out of multiple different wounds. This causes more physical damage to the bee, so it can hit sensitive areas more likely, like something up towards the compound eyes, glands that are important for wax production, maybe a wing. So there can be a lot of different issues. And but the reproduction speed and the unknowns is a lot of it too. And so there's a way more questions than answers. Maggie's team and several others have been testing miticides, products like Formic Pro, oxalic acid vapor. According to the research that I've heard, oxalic acid vapor, you'd have to use it currently once a week, every week during the season, to be able to just keep them at the same level. So that's not a super viable option. However, oxalic acid vapor doesn't do very good with one treatment once a week either. It definitely does better with Varroa than Tropilaelaps. But I mean, if you do one treatment a week for 4 weeks, that does not do much. Your mites are going to be cut back a little bit, but they are going to still grow, and they are going to become a problem in the future. I don't know about the same viruses. I do not know what the ratios are. I'm not sure if anybody knows. And so I don't know. But that's what our channel's for, is to keep people informed. And as we get solid information, we'll be sharing that. A lot of this is really changed rapidly because the previous information was done in Thailand, and they keep bees totally different than you and I. They don't have access to the feeds. They don't have access to the resources. They keep hives much smaller, and the economy is totally different. And the opportunities are totally different, just totally different beekeeping style. So the Georgian beekeepers, it's in the country of Georgia, they have it, but many of them, just like in Australia, where not all of them have Tropilaelaps yet, or if they are getting it, this might be their first year with it. And so they're still trying to figure out how that impacts those beekeepers. And why that matters is Georgian beekeepers keep bees more like we do here in the U.S. They big honey production colonies. One of the guys I talked to in Copenhagen ran 2,000 colonies, and he goes from one location to the other chasing honey flows. Much more American style beekeeping. And so this new information that we're getting is going to be a little bit more interesting. One of the questions is, right now we feel like they don't survive good on brood breaks, and because they don't seem to feed on the adult bees, and so they can't last without brood for a while, but they're surviving in these cold regions. And so the question is, are some of these colonies still keeping a little bit of brood? And that happens sometimes, especially Italian type bees. You end up with maybe a handful size, and maybe it's not all the colonies in the yard. So maybe a lot of the Tropilaelaps mites are dying off, but 10% of your yard is reinfecting the rest, and they grow so quickly, it's a problem. So this is where there's a lot more research to be done. They have some weaknesses. We've just got to do way more research. So priority number one for the United States and Canada and all North America needs to be keeping them out of here, and let the great beekeepers in Europe and other parts of the country, world, figure this thing out as best they can. So that gives us time to get our education up and also have products specifically for it. Am I a little concerned about it? Absolutely. Do I believe we can overcome this? Absolutely. So I do want people to be aware, do want everyone to be concerned, because this isn't something that you just go, it's no big deal. But at the same time, we need to prepare for it. And if we do that properly, we will come out of this significantly better. And who knows? There's still a lot to learn. There might be a huge Achilles heel. We might learn about the Tropilaelaps mites. More to come. So we're going to get a whole lot more actual information at the Bee Expo, techniques, tests on different treatments that they've done, and real world experience. So, Garrison says, forced brood breaks and all that. It's a good point. And this is something that we're already doing in our operation. And I don't do as good of a job these days of filming videos as much as I should. And I'm hoping to do better about that. I saw chicken for eggs. It's even with Varroa, do this. You're going to lose bees. It just happens to everybody. Some years you don't. Some years, maybe between the swarms that you've caught and various things that you've done, you actually have more bees than you did before. And that's totally possible too. But you're going to lose some bees from time to time. And making splits is great. And making splits without any capped brood is awesome, because you can treat that with oxalic acid vapor or something like that. And you really get this clean split. Then just make sure they have enough feed. They have a new queen maybe you've introduced from a company or you've produced yourself, and you've just totally got that hive clean. It's going to perform so good as long as the queen's a quality queen and they have plenty of nutrition. And then your other colony is going to have shed some of their mites, and you can treat them too. But making splits, broodless splits, or making partial brood breaks is a huge advantage for sustainability and just keeping your mite loads low. Part of our strategy for keeping the mites at bay is making splits and creating opportunities for our treatments to be more effective. All right. I used the video to make my patties and they like it, and I'll be making again this winter. Sweet. Truly.
That's your patty video.
Which one is it?
Michael Palmer patty recipe video. Your 2-to-1.
Yeah, 2-to-1. Yeah, that one's a great recipe, and it's the most affordable in bulk that I'm able to come up with. That's simple and sugar based. If you can get syrup cheap, like Pro Sweet by the the tote load, that actually works out pretty well. But most of us can't get access to that. And so and for years I couldn't either. I've gotten to the point now where I can. Um, so that sounds awesome. Really appreciate what you do. Got to blame you in part for getting me into the bee community. Sorry, that's what I do. And, this isn't like a self-help, like help you get recover. This is to help you get deeper into it. That's like we're the total opposite of like AAA or whatever that is. Help, I'm making the honey caramels. I can't get it to heat over 231 degrees. And if I stir, it wants to bubble over. Oh, you actually really need help. Oh, gosh, I thought you were accusing me of getting you addicted to them. So it takes a lot of time to raise it up to that temperature. It's kind of slow. Hey, Laurel, get in here, would you? She loves it when I call her like that. Nothing. She's ignoring me or got headphones on or something. Hey, Laurel. That worked. What are you doing? Oh, I've got a question for you. Help, I'm making the honey caramels. I can't get it to heat over 231 degrees. And if I stir it, it wants to bubble over. Okay. Yeah, kind of loud. Okay, I was right. Woo-hoo. Go back to what you're doing. She was She has some cool aquariums now to go with all the lizards and stuff, and she was elbow deep in aquarium water, probably changing the water out. She's got some pretty cool stuff. I love the plants. That's my favorite part. The fish and stuff, that's cool, but the plants are the best part. So, anyways, it takes some time. Maybe your container's not quite big enough. Just keep stirring it. But when it gets to a certain temperature, 231 sounds about right. It takes a while for that to raise up, and it'll just gradually go up. But you got to watch that temperature, because once it finally gets there, you really do need to pull it off. Yeah, if you're in like Denver or something, that'll change too. But ultimately, it does take time for it to cook down, and it's not going to raise that temperature for a while. So you got to have some headspace and stir it. That's the most trickiest part of it. I am. I'm accusing you of aiding me being a fat man. Now, come on. Have you tried cake fondant to feed your bees? So, John Marshall, what's the difference between cake fondant and this? So that, to answer your question, I don't think so, if it's different from this fondant. And could you give me an example? Is there recipes out there? Something to watch out for, guys, is all these recipes online. Like in the South, you can get away with even bad stuff and a bigger pot. Yeah, exactly. Is all these additives for these things. And you know what? Most of them I've tried and I can't see a difference. And some of them, it's just like, we're just going to throw the kitchen sink in there because if it sounds good, it is. Bees need energy in the wintertime. They do need a little bit of protein, but if they had some pollen flow, they'll have some bee bread stored away. And if you want to feed a little bit of pollen patty going into winter, before they really shut down, you can do that. I've done that before. But, putting just tons of proteins and stuff, you can get away with that. Again, in the South, if you're in Texas, Alabama, even Tennessee, you get enough cleansing flights. Even if it's not a positive thing, you just don't know because, well, they eat it and it must be fine. But they just poop out what they don't use once they get a cleansing flight. The problem of it is, you northern beekeepers, you cannot do this if your bees are getting hemmed up for a month or more. And it can really cause some issues with some of these feed supplements. Just really watch it. Honey, it does not have a lot of mineral content. I don't care. There was an ad the other day I responded to, and they were talking about all this, how honey is just this amazing thing, that's a perfect food. It is not. And now, if you were to take pollen and honey, that's pretty darn awesome. But honey does not have enough fats. It doesn't have enough protein, doesn't have enough mineral content to run. It is an energy source primarily for the bees. And so when we're trying to give them something for winter, we can have some additives, and there are some things in honey that are good for bees for sure, but it's not like heavy amounts of iron, calcium, protein. That's roughage that builds up in the gut during wintertime. They need most of that when they are brooding up. Now, there is some research showing that a little bit of some things can be beneficial, but be careful and know what you're doing, or you can actually hurt your bees or just waste a bunch of money. Okay, just sugar, corn syrup, 90-10, and water. I can get it for less than $1 a pound. That's really good. John Marshall, where are you getting that from? Do tell. How is everyone? Well, we were really good until you showed up, Rainier. Rainier is one of the young punks. I mean, the young men in the bee industry. Helps sometimes with the Bee Expo and stuff, and he keeps bees in Maine and also works with a commercial beekeeper. I try to keep him humble, but it's just not working. Hey, Cayman, what about having? Oh, that is very hurtful. It's character building, is what my dads would say. Hey, Cayman, what about having someone there maybe that could help teach with native wildflower perennial seeds to plant for pollination and for nectar for the bees? You know, if we could find somebody that has a good presentation and that would really fit beekeeping, that'd be great. I've looked into some of that. Most of it doesn't doesn't apply much to honeybees. It's too generalized for just everything under the sun. But honeybees, most of the time, that's the main focus of the show. But if it was more honeybee focused and I could get a kind of a sample of what it looked like, we would be interested in that for sure.
Hey, we already have that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Laurel gave me a look. Oh gosh, how do you know these things? She just literally, as I said that, I didn't know you were coming.
Cayman, are you gonna reveal that we already have someone who's coming to talk on awesome plants?
Oh, well, yeah. So we do have, yeah. What's his name again?
Sammy.
Sammy, that's right. How can I forget? I have a lot going on in this brain, and it's not very big. All right, what? You sent me a message, Laurel? All right, you guys are going to have to wait. Laurel sent me something. Shut up, idiot. Oh, no, that's somebody else. Yeah, but I'm not sure if it's the right model. Can this wait? Okay. Someone apparently is having car trouble, but it's not us. So I have all the tools apparently. I'm not sure I have the right one for it. Sammy is giving a lecture, but he's in Louisiana, and he's a great commercial beekeeper and nursery grower. I mean, they just grow all kinds of plants. I've seen the stuff that he grows. He's going to be bringing plants to the expo. They are phenomenal. This guy is dialed in with his plants, and he'll also be giving a lecture. And the plants that he's going to be like bringing up is stuff like basswood, tulip poplar, black locust, different bushes like vitex and different plants. And he'll be giving talks about that. And there'll be some other things like clover and they're mentioned, but it's really more hyper focused on what trees, what bushes, what small plants and things that you can seed into your fields that produce honey and pollen, and just how to take care of them. The guy is extremely smart in that regard. But we're also interested in looking at other things in that category. Laurel should have an aquarium YouTube channel, and she should. I have begged her to do all kinds of stuff like that, and she would do great if she'd actually do it. She has threatened me with bodily harm if I force her to do those kinds of things, and I'm scared, so I don't. Yeah. Do you do military discounts for the North American Honeybee Expo? No, we don't. We don't do any discounts for anybody but kids, and that just started this year. There's nothing wrong with using 2 reflective sheets under the lid for winter. Nothing wrong with that at all. I've actually done it a couple times. Just I had an extra one with me, and I'm just like, I don't want to really have to throw that back into the truck. I'll just stick it under the lid.
Hey, I'm going to play devil's advocate and ask you, since you've done this, is there any risk of having condensation between the two, making it slick and potentially able to fall off if there's no lip on the lid?
It shouldn't. Now if there's no lip on the lid, if it's not like a telescoping cover, yeah, it would encourage that to happen more likely. But you'd probably want to have that weighted down anyways with a brick or something. As far as condensation in between, as long as you have a cover that's not letting rain in, it shouldn't be an issue because these things seal so well that it should be keeping any of that into the hive. And so you're like, well, that's not good. I want condensation in there. So most of my colonies that aren't like just rock stars, and I mean, these colonies are still like solid 7, 8 frame clusters. I have some that are bigger than that though. They're in a single deep box, and they're just dominating that top space of those frames. Those are the ones I'm feeding right now. I'm feeding sugar syrup. If any of you guys have questions about feeding sugar syrup and the weather, like it's going to be about 70 the next couple of days and 65 and stuff like that, we can talk about that a little bit. Ask your questions down below. But that condensation is not a problem in big colonies like that. You'll open it up and you'll see a little bit of micro drops on top. Big deal. You're going to have condensation in your hive, and this is something that people freak out about because they just don't know what the balance is. And in some area, winters are so dry, it's a non-issue. Bees need that condensation to drink. A lot of it's going to form on them. So not all condensation is bad. And if you have sugar bricks or if you have anything like a candy board that's dry like that, they are going to need some water to dilute that down. And if you get a warm day, the first thing they're going to do is go out and they're going to gather water from a puddle or the nearest pond or wherever they can find it because they need water. And so you're going to have some condensation buildup. But if they're close to the lid, they're going to keep that reflectix warm enough. There'll be maybe a little formula, condensation, but just a tiny bit's not going to hurt. We just don't want just tons of water raining down on the bees. So that's just going to go and rain down on the walls of the hive. And that's very normal. That's how it's supposed to work. And yeah, shouldn't be a problem. How did your brother get all the height and good looks? That is not true. Ethan is like an inch taller than me. Maybe not even that. He wears boots that have heels like cowboy boots and stuff. So a lot of people get the wrong idea. Now, Hayden, my younger brother in the Air Force, he's probably 5'10", and his military boots totally 5'11". And, he's got the Top Gun mustache going right now. It's whatever. I'm married and he's not. Let's just put it that way. Okay. Bob Benny's neighbor Jack would be good. I don't know much about Jack, to be honest. I need to get with it, I suppose. But yeah, Hayden's the taller one. I'm 5'6", so proud of it. Doesn't bother me a bit. Throw your jokes. I've heard them all before. I drove a semi, and I've heard all the short jokes. Colorado, got to meet Rogan at our state meeting yesterday. I never can get his last name right. Yes, he totally is. And we actually reached out to him to speak in the future. And we're hoping that he's going to be able to do that. He wasn't available this year. And he seems like a pretty cool dude. So if anyone knows Rogan or is talking to him, tell him that we want to see him at the Bee Expo. You don't even know how to measure anything. Your generation didn't learn anything in school. All right. Ignore that man. Actually, ban him. All right. My computer, ever since like the last update on this StreamYard platform, like it'll just randomly, my chat will just scroll like 100 comments up, and then I have to work my way back down. It's really strange. So I don't actually vent my hives. Some people do, and some people don't. It really depends on your winters, your setup, and several factors. Central Indiana weather going to be medium to high 50s, low 60s this week. Lows in the mid 30s. Trying to decide whether to feed 2-to-1 this week with in high feeders or put on candy boards now. Suggestions. Good question, Lisa. So, the nice thing about, and thanks for being one of our members, by the way. The nice thing about candy boards and stuff like that is you can put that on in the 40s. I've done it in lower temperatures. It is nice to do it in the 50s or 60s. It's definitely more comfortable for the beekeeper, but it wouldn't hurt to wait a little bit lower if you had to. The 2-to-1 is kind of tricky. A big, powerful colony, if you put in 100-degree syrup in there in a in-hive feeder that's right over the cluster, if you're talking a frame feeder, sometimes especially not if it's not a big colony, they can't really get to it before it cools down. Once it cools down, it starts dropping around 40 degrees Fahrenheit. They don't take it very well. Powerful colonies handle that so much better. But when it starts getting really cool, having a jar, having an in-hive feeder that a decent sized cluster is close to, they can get access that and they'll take it, and it actually works pretty good. I've had success, but what I would probably do if it's going to be low 60s, have it warm. If it's right there close to the cluster and it's a strong hive, I would give it a shot, and I'd come back in a week or a few days, whenever it's convenient for you. And if they took it down, perfect. If they didn't, take it off and throw your candy boards on. But, if you're already going to do a candy board anyways, those are pretty heavy. I don't know how big yours are, but a lot of times they're 20-ish pounds or more. I've seen some people have them so thick, there's got to be like 30 pounds of feed there. So that's a lot of insurance. And the nice thing about those is that does remove some of the condensation using those candy boards and sugar bricks and stuff like that. But some people say, well, what about adding 2-to-1 that the water content in there? The bees are going to drink that. They're going to enjoy having that thinner syrup. They'll ripen what they want to, and they'll just consume the rest. And does it add a little bit of moisture into the hive? Sure, but it's this early on, it's not a big deal. And by the time it could be a deal, it's not going to be around. Okay. No problem, Lisa. Thanks for the good question. This thing is just scrolling all over the place on me. It's totally glitched now. Like it's just moving on its own, just back and forth, up and down. Is there any more questions I've missed, Chris? Because I'm just watching it move right now.
We're at a good point right now.
All right. Well, let's say a couple things about the Bee Expo really quick, and then if we get a cool question, we'll take it, and then we'll end it. But sure. So lots of exciting things about the Bee Expo. Chris, when is the ticket price going up again?
I should know that off the top of my head. I have it right here.
Well, I should too, but I don't. So the ticket prices will be going up. We don't want anyone to have to pay those, so go ahead and get that taken care of.
December 1st.
December 1st. So you have a little less than a month, and let all your friends know. There's where we were at this time last year. We're well above that for people that are asking. This time last year, we were about 300 or so tickets lower than where we're at now. So that's really exciting, especially for the vendors that are curious about that. The vendors have the best deals that I've seen. I guess maybe I say that every year, but the competition is getting more fierce. There's more options, and companies are getting more aggressive, and that's only good for the consumer. The booths are phenomenal. There's way more investment into booths and displays, and our team, Chris, and we've contracted out some work to Corey, who is our sponsor coordinator, has done a phenomenal job getting even sponsorships from outside of our vendors to come into the show to decorate and make things better, and to help us be able to have more offerings for the youth and the honey show, and also other things that we'll be talking about. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it, Chris. North American honey bar. I think maybe I've mentioned this in the past, but I'm going to mention it again. This is one of the more cool things I think we're adding this year. We've got a couple other things we're looking into, but this one's going to happen. So help me. And I'm going to need some help. So help me. Uh, so what we're doing here is this massive bar, and I got to give kudos to Appamondia when I
honey
go
bar.
ahead, Chris.
Honey bar.
What did I say?
Bar. It's not a bar. It's a honey bar. We're not allowed to have any liquor in the or alcohol period in the place. I don't want to get kicked out.
And it's Kentucky of all places. But yes, it is a honey bar. Thanks for catching that, Chris. All of the all the dry Baptists would be all over it. So, all jokes aside, I'm sorry, I've got some friends.
I can't take you anywhere.
I'm thinking in my mind's eye right now of these friends. So we're gonna have honeys from every state, hopefully every Canadian province, and we're gonna have a Canadian section, of course. So you'll and all the different states with signs, and we're wanting to have stuff like Tupelo honey from this state, and maybe some Bob Sourwood, and we're gonna have little scoops, tongue depressors, various things, plastic little spoons, whatever, probably myriad of different options for you to get to taste these different honeys from all over the country. So getting to try some Maine honey, so maybe some blueberry honey, get to try some orange blossom from Florida, and just get to sample these. And it was so fun. Appamondia, I've got to give them credit for having the global honey bar. And you got to try honey from all over, especially Europe and Asia. There was, of course, some other honeys there as well. And it was primarily focused on the Scandinavian region because it was held in Copenhagen, but kind of collabed between Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. And that's where I got some of the honeys I actually have here on my desk. And it was so cool to get to try it. And I went around Croatian honey, got to try some heather honey. Of course, a lot of Scandinavian honeys that were awesome. And there were so many cool ones, cedar honey, SIDR. And then I got around to the Chinese section. And then I looked at it and like, well, I think I'll skip this one because if I want to try this, I'll just go to the Piggly Wiggly down the road or the Walmart. And you know what? They may have been legit. And what's so unfair for the Chinese beekeepers that are doing it right is there's unfortunately so much fraud honey and beeswax coming out of China that the ones that are doing it and are great beekeepers don't get probably the credit they deserve. But yeah, I didn't take a chance and skipped it. Wow. So we're going to have that. I'm going to need people because to volunteer some honey from different states is basically what it's going to come out to. We'll put out some information on that. If you want to showcase your state and your region and your specialty stuff, we're going to try to say, hey, this is honey from this. We're definitely going to say which state it's from. And, maybe yours is mostly blackberry blossom and I don't know, tulip poplar. We'll need to know that. It's a stick situation.
I think he meant sticky.
It's a sticky situation.
His Y key must be sticky.
Yeah, Sean, you gotta learn
he's off his caffeine this late.
But it's going to be so cool. And so we're going to need all kinds of help from all 50 states, all the Canadian provinces. What are there, 7 or 8 of them? So Ian Stepler, I expect you to send some honey down. I know he's probably not still in here, but anyone who's going to talk to him soon, I'm calling him out. He brags about his Canadian bee-made canola honey being this legendary stuff. Let's see it, Ian. Prove it at the biggest show in North America. Can he do it? Will he do it? He's not showing up himself, so he can at least send his honey as a surrogate or something like that. All right. So we're going to be doing that. Make sure to get your tickets. Tell all of your friends. It is going to be absolutely insane. Be on the lookout and be ready to download the app for our show. It is, I know some of you are like, apps aren't my thing. And hey, I'm right there with you. But there's a lot of advantages to the app. We can communicate so much better. The app is more than just that. It's going to be able to help you organize the talks that you want to go to. You're going to be able to create things for yourself if you enjoy that kind of stuff. The vendors are going to be able to showcase, hey, we're doing demos on this day. Maybe we're showing some candle making molds, how to make your own. Get involved over here. Maybe your state is having a meetup, and that's keyed on the app. That doesn't mean that'll be the only place. Someone might post in the Facebook group too. But the app is going to really have you front and center with all the main activities going on and all the fringe stuff as well. So be watching out for that and join. Yeah, there's an app, Jed, as a vendor. You know this. You're probably just messing with us. The app is not my face picture. It's not. It's probably the Expo logo. What is it, Chris? Do you know?
Yeah, it'll be it's actually the company we use, which is Wova. But yeah, so you can, if you want to, you can go out and download the app now. But our event is not live on the page, so you can't see all the information. So all the information is currently on the website. The schedule's out there. The speakers are out there. We have some finalizing of the trade show map still. We're still working on it diligently. And as soon as it's finalized, that will be posted live.
Sounds good. I have a couple of small 8 splits I'm going to put above a double screen board over a strong hive. Can I use a frame feeder basically in a small hive this time of the year? It depends on the temperature. If you're getting a lot of days in the 70s, I would say go for it. And if it's a big hive, totally go for it. But if it's a smaller hive, it's going to struggle a lot more to do that and to do anything. And so maybe going the extra mile and giving them feed closer to them with a jar, or something they can warm up a little bit might be helpful. It depends on how small they are, but frame feeders, especially when they get cold and they're far away from the bees, do not perform well in this type of condition. Only my powerful colonies are able to, in the 60s and 70s, pull from a frame feeder very well. So I would keep it close. Nuts and bolts beekeeping said, I'll be there with my son who got the scholarship. Congratulations to your son. And it's going to be our biggest group of young men and women. It's going to be awesome. So just lots of stuff on the way. The speaking, right now on the website, you can go to the speakers, and some of their talks have been, you can click the speaker and you can see some of the talks. Not all of them are inputted yet. And some of it's a little bit vague because we're finalizing a thing or two. But just keep an eye on that, and we will be releasing a schedule in the near future as well, won't we, Chris? Oh.
Yes, sorry. It's popping this up. So yeah, the schedule's out there, so you'll be able to go on here and check stuff out. You'll even be able to click on, for instance, you can click on Bob's speaker page. And when you do that, not only does it give you his information, but you can actually also see the other talks that Bob is giving during the expo.
And one of them's like oh, go ahead, Chris. I thought you were done.
The app will also give a couple additional things as well. This is, again, just the website version of it. So this is the other talk that Bob was scheduled to give with Greg Rogers.
Yeah, and we're going to have more information coming on that. We'll eventually have the workshops on here. We'll announce that as well. We've got a couple other unique things, kind of like the North American honey bar and a few other things going on. So just, a lot of it's fixing to fall. There's a lot of prep work that goes into this and a lot of behind the scenes. The vendors are mostly ironed out. Chris has done a great job with that. The trade show, we've released a lot of that information already. And so that's out of our way, and we're focused now on, stuff like lanyards and logistics on that and everything under the sun. And I had another deadline I had to finish by today. So just deadlines all the time, but it's from here on out, it's going to be action packed. November and December get crazy busy with vendors posting deals, be on the lookout. Chris, what is that going to look like long term with the vendor deals? Like, is there going to be like a place where people can easily go and find a vendor and what they're doing or something?
Yeah, so the vendor deals will all be easily the found most easily inside of the app. So there will be and we will have videos and guides and everything. It's not ready yet, but
Hmm.
you'll be able to click on each vendor and see they'll be able to add handouts, graphics, any demo videos they have. Anything will be actually inside the app for each vendor. We think that's the best way to get it. Instead of there were a lot of unfortunately vendors kind of excluded from that in the past, and so by kind of including everyone together, there's no exclusion. Everyone's in the same boat. And we will have an interactive trade show floor map as well
Hmm.
inside the app. So you'll be able to type in a booth number and it'll tell you who's at that booth, and
Hmm.
vice versa. You'll be able to type in the name of vendor and it'll tell you the booth. And we'll have giant aisle signs and a couple other real fun little ways to denote some signage, and it's going to be really great.
Hmm. And so, in that regard, I was just going to say there's a few companies that do things a little bit different. Some of them, like Hilco and Man Lake and others, actually have a link that goes to their website. And they have a whole section just for Bee Expo pickup only, and it's really nice and easy to understand. But then there's some like data, and they want you to call. And I think on certain things it's 20% off, on other things it's this or that. And they've posted flyers in our Facebook page, but they want you to call. So if there's a particular product that you're looking into, if it's an extractor from a certain company or you're pricing different companies, look at which companies are coming, if they don't have it yet, and say, hey, I'm wanting fondant, or hey, I'm wanting this, or hey, I'm wanting that at the Bee Expo. What do you have? Um, one will either, they'll be like, well, just there's a link right here, go to it, you're good. Or if they don't have it on the app yet, and that's the thing, it kind of helps pressure them into getting with it. Not all the companies take the expo as seriously as others, and hey, that's their decision to make. I think they're missing out in some ways, but ultimately they may have a lot of other stuff going on. But the more they hear from the fans of their company and their products that you want something easy to access, the more they're going to do it. So, and Chris has really got some good systems going this year, and next year it's going to be even better and faster. I expect the releases to be much earlier, but the vendors, trying to herd all the vendors is kind of like herding cats. It's very hard. And so we've had to become a lot more sort of ruthless in some ways to, you got to get this to us or else. And that's just not the way that I am. Chris is a lot meaner than I am. It's that Yankee disposition. I see. I'm 50% Southern. That charm.
Yeah.
You don't know Chris. I wasn't talking to you.
Yeah, I know.
Um, and
Us
Laurel
us
knows.
Ohio Yankees, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, Rossman's got some good deals on unassembled nukes as well. And I want to say a big thank you to Rossman for once again sponsoring our coffee. They've sponsored it for years, and they do great deals and stuff. So they're going to be right across from the coffee. Definitely stop and see Alan and make fun of him. You want to talk about a hick from Georgia? He's like, when they have the definition in the dictionary, Alan Blount is the definition. That's right. Rainier says, I wish that southern charm you speak of existed and you came in. Hey, I don't throw pearls before swine, Rainier. I'm not going to show you the charm. You're a kid, almost an adult. You're kind of there. Are you 20 yet? Yeah, the Rossman coffee, and that's produced by Copper Canyon, is it's like the honey at the show for beekeepers. But they also are going to have tea for those who don't like coffee, and they're going to have like a unlimited or a very large amount of hot chocolate this year. Um, Maybe I just put Sean on the spot, but I know it's going to be a significant amount of that. Um,
Hey, I'll throw Sean under the bus for this one. He'll love me. He's for any of the vendors listening right now, he's actually working on a coffee delivery system for vendors only at the show. So any of the vendors again who are listening,
I don't think the
he'll
vendors deserve it.
he's creating a system where he'll be able to deliver hot, amazing Copper Canyon coffee and hot chocolate to your booth. So more details on that to follow. So
Yeah, and the vendors really deserve it. I hope it's not too big of a burden for Sean, but the vendors, they're busy. They work, work, work. They're on their feet, and it's just like us running the show, and that's our job, and that's the vendor's job. But at the same time, um, guys like Sean understanding that and helping them be able to get coffee when they really need it, but they can't get away from the booth because we're all like asking them questions and stuff. Um, that's a really nice service. And that's what this is all about. This is a community thing, and it has more ripple effects than you all realize outside of the industry. The Bee Expo is becoming a much larger player in North American issues, and we're not here to take over. We're not here to do anything. We're here to bring reinforcements into all the issues that we have. And so we are going to be working with the honey producers, the American Beekeeping Federation, Honeybee Coalition, the Bee Cause Alliance, Project APISM, and so many other groups. We already are in some ways. We're going to be working with them all more because they do different things than we do, and we do different things than they do. And that's what makes a colony of bees healthy and strong, is having some that are good at this, some that are good at that. We've got to stop all this. Hey, you're this. Hey, you're that. We can't afford it. So let's get our act together and work together. All right. Christmas for beekeepers, January 8th, 9th, and 10th. We'll be doing another live chat here soon. So be on the lookout for that. If you have any questions between now and then, put them in a YouTube video or save them for the next live chat. We will see you all in the next video.